Welcome to another video for Swaying Willow Charms channel. Today we're going to be going over my, well, it's not the deck that I had the longest, but the deck that I had the longest I no longer have. So this is the one that I got when I decided to go on my year-and-a-day journey as a witch. It is as witchy as it gets. As you can see, we have ourselves a nice pentacle on the back. It is called the Witch. Let's see if I can get called the Witch Tarot. And it's by Ellen Gannon Reed and Martin Cannon. So I'm guessing that's a husband and wife pairing. So there's 2 books to go along with this, and I don't have them, but I did order them. There's Kabbalah and Paganism found in The Goddess in the Tree, book 1 of the Witch's Kabbalah, and a more detailed discussion of Tarot, Kabbalah, and Paganism can be found in the Witch's Tarot, book 2 of the Witch's Kabbalah. So this particular deck is a little different in how it treats your minor arcana cards that are the kings and queens, and I think they have princesses and princes. Let me see, just to make sure I'm not lying to you. And the book is even set up a little differently. So as you can see, I've got all the aces are on this page. They don't set up the book by suits. It's all the aces together, all the 2s, 3s, 4s together until you get into the very back, which you have the major arcana at the very back of the book, which is very different. Most little tarot booklet cards that you have, the major arcana is first. Oh, okay, so we have kings, queens, princes, and princesses. So instead of knights and pages, you have princes and princesses. And another change to the deck, which if you look at this deck, it's been pretty hardcore used. There wasn't a box that came with this, and I have a little pouch that I got for it, and I actually had this in my purse, in my bag, for a very long time. I literally just carried it around with me. And instead of the devil, you have the horned one. So there are some differences from, you know, your standard Rider-Waite tarot to this deck. And the way you treat a king, a queen, or a prince or a princess is that you have to put a second card on top of it to modify it, which if you have a few of these in a reading, you can have a ton more cards than you originally had, because the kings and queens and princesses and princes are read like this. The card which is indicated by the card modified has taken shape in action. The results are forming and will become manifest. That's the Prince of Swords. So it has to be modified by a card, and then this card itself will modify whatever is placed on top of it. It creates a different reading for this card by what card is on top of it. So you could have the entire rest of the deck that just modifies this. It can be major arcana, it could be minor arcana, and if you have another one of these cards that ends up modifying this one, and I separate them and put them on there and you can have a whole family show up that way. It ends up being a very card heavy reading no matter what I do for this, because obviously these are bound to show up at least in one reading or another. and it has 2 extra cards in the deck. And this is the Celtic Cross spread and the explanations, and this is the Four Seasons spread and the explanations. And because of this deck, I use this Four Seasons spread almost every time I have a problem. I feel like this is an amazing spread. You have 8 cards, and 1 modifies, 2 modifies 3, 2 modifies 3, 4 modifies 5, 6 modifies 7, and 8 modifies 1. So the second card influences the third card, and you have this whole spiral effect of one card modifying another, which is sort of the theme to this particular deck, is that you have cards that modify other cards. So if you like readings with just very few cards in it, this is not the deck for you. You'll have cards on top of cards on top of cards in just a standard reading. And I use this a lot. In fact, I have friends who come over and this is the deck that they prefer. I've never brought this to work because the Pentacle, of course, wigs people out, and because we have quite a bit of nudity in this deck. Normally you have like the star and the strength cards are naked cards, and that's fine, but most of the aces have naked people on them. The Ace of Cups is a naked woman, and there's several other cards in the deck where there are boobs aplenty. So I try not to bring this around children, and I don't tend to bring it into a work situation where I have to be concerned about the fact, oh yes, pretty much all the aces have naked people because this is the Ace of Wands and it has a naked guy. And the universe in this card is also a naked one. Star, traditionally naked, definitely naked in this deck. So there's a lot of nudity. Horned One has plenty of nudity. You saw him earlier. And I think the Hermit is not called the Hermit. The Hermit is called the Seeker. I'm not holding that card right. It's called the Seeker. So that's another difference in this deck. And there's Strength is normally a naked woman, and this one is very pretty and very naked. And the Lovers are quite naked, and his bits are out and quite obvious. And so just ends up being a deck that I have to sort of think about who I'm reading for. Is this going to be an issue for the people I'm reading for? Are they going to want to deal with the nudity? And you know, quite a few of my friends absolutely love this. It's actually one of my favorite cards because I'm trying to get pregnant, so I love it when the Nine of Pentacles shows up. And I don't feel like the other decks have it be a pregnancy card, and the Three of Pentacles is also has another pregnant woman on it. Felt like Ace of Pentacles is another naked woman. I feel like there's not a lot of pregnancy cards in other decks, but this one talks about fertility quite a bit. And I've been going through my fertility situation for a very, very long time, so I feel like I enjoyed this deck because of that. So let's talk about the artwork, and you'll have to forgive the fact that the deck is a little bit worn. The kings in this deck are all very similar. As you can see, they have a different color to them. They're carrying their different things. And what's interesting is that the King of Swords has fire behind him. I think they changed some of the elemental stuff in this one too. I think it's not standard. I think they think in this one that swords is fire instead of air, and wands are air. So I think that's a difference as well. There's a lot of differences in this particular deck that they chose to make, and I'll be honest, since I've worked with this a lot, when I first started, I didn't notice a lot of the differences because this had been something that I just spent a lot of time with. I think because I spent a lot of time with this deck, I had gotten confused about what elements are with other cards. You still have water for cups, you still have earth for pentacles, but when you get into the wand suit and the king suit, it's when you sort of change the situation. And I think the readings in this deck also have wands be like mental stuff, and swords be action, which is reversed in a lot of different decks. So I feel like I really need to read all the books and stuff that they put out associated with this particular deck to understand why they made the changes. And just going through this before I did this video, I realized why I had issues with switching this stuff around for other decks like Red or White, because this specific deck I used for a long time. I didn't have a Red or White tarot until I was gifted one a long time ago. I've had this one for over 10 years, and I think I was gifted the Red or White older deck, the one that's like 50 years old, that was passed on to me maybe 8 years ago. So I was using this deck for 2 to 3 years before I saw a Red or White tarot deck, and this was my standard. So when it came to understanding which suits have which elements with them, I got really confused. Switching over to what everyone basically feels is standard. But I still love this deck. And there's a notation for the horned one, which is the explanation of why the devil is not included in this deck. Please note, the horned one does not represent the devil. Belief in the devil is not part of paganism. The horned one represents the male aspects of the deity in paganism, just like the Earth Mother or the Moon Goddess represents the female aspects of deity. So, even though this is not a very large book, it's definitely got a lot packed into it. And I can't even tell you how many times I've used this Four Seasons layout. I feel like that's my standard. I do the Celtic Cross, which is one of those layouts that comes up in most cards. I do it for people, and I do this for situations, and I often don't ask the cards about people. I'll ask about myself occasionally, but I don't like asking about other people that much, unless I'm reading for somebody else. They'll ask about themselves quite a bit, and that's fine with me. You know, you want to take a look at your overall life and well-being and what you've been going through. But I do use this one a lot to go over the situations that I'm in at the moment. And it just works really, really well for me. So, let's see. The King of Wands, that which is represented by the card has not begun a reality. The seed of thought has chosen. Journey has begun. So like wands, they're saying are thoughts. Swords, that which by the card is in the stage of creative urge. Querent may have detected what step to take, but he has not taken the first step. Seed of action is chosen. So wands are thought, swords are action. King of Cups, that which is represented in the card modifies the stage of creative urge. The querent has chosen a direction for the emotion. Querent may feel the urge to perform some action of divination. King of Pentacles. That which is represented by the card modified as the stage of creative urge. Since Earth denotes physical, this could denote possible pregnancy. That is not, but not one that is current. It is more a matter of the child being a gleam in his father's eye. Other physical births may be represented by the card. Anything that can manifest on the physical that become possible. So they still follow along with the Pentacles being a physical card, discussing money and so on and so forth like that more than anything. But this one is definitely laid out that swords are action, and wands are thought, and cups are emotion, and pentacles are physical manifestation. So I don't know, if you want a deck that is significantly different from the Rider-Waite but still has much of the same imagery. I mean, if we go through the major arcana, it does echo that quite a bit. We've got the Fool. Many of the same standard imagery is here. Artwork is obviously different, but you have his stick, you have the bag on the back. He's holding a paper, he's looking directly, well, into the camera, as some people would say. And he's walking off the ledge. All of these elements are definitely in a standard Rider-Waite card. And the Magician here has all four of the things on the table. He's got the cups, he's got the pentacle, he's got a sword, and he's got a wand, which again is imagery that you can find in that. And you've got a high priestess, and she's between the two pillars, and she has the moon above her and a moon on her crown. This is again very similar imagery. And we have an empress, we have an older woman who is pregnant and laying in flowers. We have the emperor also shown on his throne. This is another image that is very common. The high priest instead of the Hierophant. Now, what he's doing here with the dagger, the sword, and the cup is a ritual that I was taught about quite a bit ago, and it is a very common ritual to do. The lovers, you have a sort of female robed goddess figure over them, and they are both naked and vulnerable and holding hands. Chariot, you still have the chariot and the helmet and all, so on and so forth, and is very similar imagery. Strength, naked female, and a lion, or this one looks more like a lioness. Imagery that just carries over. The Seeker and the Hermit don't look too different, even though the name is different. And Justice. Justice again has her scales, she has the sword. And the Wheel of Fortune is a bit different in this one. You've got the many stages of womanhood here. You've got a tiny baby, a infant girl, a tween, a teenage girl. You've got a mother, and then you've got a crone. This one definitely has more of an Odin feel to it than the standard Hanged Man. It even has runes at the bottom of the card. And this death card, well, I've dreamed about this death card quite a bit, because you've got the faces underneath instead of it just being a man on horseback. And very much a death card in what most people think of one. And Temperance here has the eagle and the lion which is something you normally see in the Wheel of Fortune. The cauldron in front of her. The Horn God we've already discussed. Significantly different. Not a double card now. The imagery is completely different in that card. Tower. Bursting forth with lightning. This is a very similar card to the Rider-Waite. The Star. Naked female next to a stream. Slightly different. She's got 2 cups in here, but still the imagery is extremely similar. The Moon, you still have the lobster and the wolves and many phases of the moon there. It's Sun's a bit different, I have to say, from the standard deck, and Judgment has a lot of the same imagery but is pretty different. And the Universe, which naked female again, but also has a lot of the same imagery as the previous standard tarot deck, the Rider-Waite. So I was a beginner with this deck. So can I say that other people shouldn't be a beginner with this deck? I don't know. I feel like it was difficult for me to transition to any other deck after this one because it is different. The imagery is significantly different if I wanted to use a Rider-Waite deck. And it took me a lot of time to adjust. But did I adjust? Yes. Do I still love this deck? Absolutely. Do I use it enough now? Probably not. I feel like I use it less because I have other decks to refer to, and because of some of the nudity and some of these straight on witch things. I don't do readings with it as much, but I do a lot of meditation with it. But man, oh man, oh man, do I use this layout. It doesn't matter what set of cards I'm using. The Four Seasons layout comes up all the time. I guess, as you can see, I like circular things anyway, so a circular layout is just all sorts of fun for me. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you like this and you want to see more videos like this, please click subscribe. If you want to watch any one of my other videos, you can see them here. Thank you.